Hi there, I'm Carrie Ellis, author of 21st Century Superhuman, and this is our 21st Century Superhuman show. And with me today, I have an exciting friend named Bruce Lyons, and he is from New Zealand.
Hi, Cary.
Hi.
Hi.
Really great to see you today. And I'm so excited to do this interview with you. I kind of met you through a friend, Baba Des Nichols, who wrote a book called Sex Magic and started the Temple of, what do you call it? ISTA?
School of Temple Arts.
School of Temple Arts.
International School of Temple Arts.
International School of Temple Arts. And I think I met him about 10 years ago and kind of got together with him in Sedona, and then have kind of watched him, encouraged him to write a book, encouraged him to go ahead with the temple because he was so eloquent at what he was speaking of. And obviously it's developed into this worldwide movement, which has been fantastic. And you are a wonderful part of that. I know you're a key instructor with that organization. And, but I've noticed, just in all of us being in this global community on Facebook, I've noticed these comments that you make. And I just think, wow, what an alive, rich, blessed man. I'd like to, and then I just saw something you posted the other day and I thought, wow, I'd like to transmit some of this to my audience. So why don't you go ahead and share a little bit about yourself with us, and then maybe I'll read a few quotes that I found of you commenting on your work and your path, and tell us a little bit about your background and what got you to where you are now. And I know you come from like a biology or some kind of science background, and then came into like the human condition background, and now I just see you as this playful, joyous being who's really sharing the delight of life with people. So
yeah, well, that's a good description. I think. I mean, I think I'm just spent a lot of my life trying to figure out what was this thing, called being human on this planet, and how to integrate a life that seemed to have so many different conflicting, designs on me. And now I really just want to live as deeply and fully and richly as possible and share the delight of being human and the mystery of being alive. I mean, it's an incredible miracle that we're actually here talking to each other, never mind the technology and everything else, just these bodies and the fact that consciousness has arrived in this self-realized way on planet Earth is just incredible. So I guess my journey really began like everybody else, is trying to integrate being alive in this incarnate biological, mechanism called a human being with actually all of the deeper levels of what it is to be alive. And so I began in marine biology and zoology and learned a lot about animal behavior, and but then it didn't really seem to include the deeper realms of human beings, the soul realms, if you like. So then I got into psychology and I got into spiritual studies, and I guess I was trying to work with the conflict inside myself, and also what I saw in my world of how to be in your fullness in life and meet all your survival needs and all of your environmental needs, and at the same time self-realize as a human being. So I began to really feel into what is it that makes humans integrate with their environment, what makes them separate, how to awaken, and how to integrate mainly the realms of soul and the realms of ordinary life. And I often found that for many people, they were doing an awakening and a transcendence and a going into spiritual realms, but really becoming very ungrounded. Or they were really getting into the material worlds and, living a kind of the zombie-like existence that most of the world seems trapped in, and trying hard to integrate these deeper dimensions. So my passion these days really is to help people relate their own personal journey of transformation and awakening and integration with this global phenomena of what's happening on the planet, this universal journey really of 5 billion years of the universe becoming awake to itself through human beings on planet Earth. And if you link up your individual journey with the cosmic journey, it kind of accelerates it and makes sense of it and contextualizes it in a way that really, helps people. So there's been this journey really of awakening over the last 60 years since, the 50s and 60s, where people have kind of broken off the survival things. They've tried to awaken to a deeper level of soul. And now there's kind of a time of integration. Probably there are so many awake people on the planet. They're finding each other through all of these different modes. I mean, just energetically, they're finding each other through resonance.
Yes.
They're living a life that is energy-based rather than structure and form and mind-based. And they're beginning to realize they're actually all part of this wonderful vibrating organism. And as we find each other, then we're replacing the kind of culture of greed and control and survival with this culture of love and freedom and creativity and delight. So, I'm fortunate these days to travel a lot and really experience that incredible meeting of souls, all over the planet. And I'm really excited about what's coming, because I don't think any of us have really any idea of what that is. Absolutely. It's a bit like when a human brain starts to really awaken, we don't know what it's going to look like yet, but certainly it's thrilling and exciting, and I'm really glad I'm alive at this time.
Yeah, I'm getting chills just listening to you, and it's really just such an amazing time that we're in, and we are in this collective awakening, and it's really what 21st Century Superhuman is about. It's about us moving into these greater fields of light and kind of being stimulated to actually go through this awakening process. And it's so pervasive, and I think it's what the great masters, Yeshua, Buddha, probably Muhammad, all came to teach us, to say, hey, you are creator divine beings who's are designed to operate in love, and time for you to wake up and remember that. And look, here we are, 1,500, 2,000 years later, and having to say, and we really are coming into this as a collective. And I know there's the front of the wave, and there's probably a certain amount of the masses that are still sleeping a bit, but I think because we are really one, as this wave is beginning on the planet, it's going to carry us into a new, really wonderful civilization that's founded in peace and enough for all. And so that really begins with the kind of things that you teach and you talk about, which is our connecting with our individual self and the magnificence of who we are, how we bring that forward both as an individual, and then how we bring it forth with a partner as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one thing to find God by yourself. It's another to really share that with another. And that taps back to what you were saying. The new Buddha is a Sangha, that the modern world is not so much just the following of one great teacher who arrived for us all to give us enlightenment, but to realize as we all awaken and come together, we collectively become, the new world teacher, or whatever it is that people are looking for, which is basically a culture of love and freedom. And we become that through our connection with each other. And so one of the beautiful things about the younger generation is they kind of come with that in their DNA. My generation is still part of the narcissistic find yourself generation a little bit, that had lots of stars going out and giving out their teaching and their awakening and so on. But one of the beautiful things about what's coming and the whole Aquarian thing is that there's just this natural sense of the field, of the we field between everybody, rather than so much the I point of light.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the young ones really do get it. I see them everywhere I go, everywhere I travel and teach, and they come up to me and they're kind of like, hey, where's the path out of this place? We didn't come in here to, be part of this old matrix world. And,
exactly.
And they really do already have it in their minds and hearts. Let me read a couple of quotes that I just took off of your website, because I just think they're so beautiful, and they're some of what attracted me to wanting to do this with you. True power is not an exchange of authority, but the affirmation and revelation of essential identity. So we're in the middle of tapping into our true power, which is the revelation of our true identity. So let me just read a little bit out of your bio. I'm not going to do the brass tacks part, but more your sense of life. At the core of my life is about living and loving as fully, richly, and freely as possible while empowering others to do the same. This is my contribution to an emergent global culture and anchored in love and reverberating with the sound of freedom, the unique essence of the human spirit. And we're so much in the birth of that right now. And we'll talk about that in a minute, but it's so beautiful. And I love the way I see you repeatedly saying this kind of thing. And I'm just so glad you're such a carrier of this energy. I work principally with the two flows of life force we call sexuality and spirituality, because they provide the fastest path I know to liberation, initiation, and remembrance of essential embodied divinity. Wow. That is just awesome. And Bruce's website is Bruce Lyon, LYON.com. And we'll have that link under this video and on the web, on the blog post that I do on the video at Naturally Better TV. We're so happy to be on this show on Naturally Better TV, which is a great group of broadcasters. But go ahead. I know you've written some books. I know you have something called the Shambhala community, Shambhala, and you live on an island off of the northern island of New Zealand with a great wildlife sanctuary. Tell us just some of these exciting, juicy things about how you've chosen to live your life, because I think within each of us, and I think for some people, the idea is scary to step out of the system and become too much of an expression of this divine, creative, joyful being that we are. But I'd like to bridge into that. And I think there's a lot of people who are like, yeah, how do I get there? How do I bring this dream into fruition? So how did you get these cool, exciting things to be happening in your life? And, just tell us a little bit about those things.
Sure. Well, of course, it's a little bit like the spiritual path, trying to get enlightened. Of course, by the time you actually stand at the door of enlightenment, there's no you left to get enlightened. And in the same, in terms of people trying to live amazing lives, basically, my path has been a path of sacrifice. Like, in the best way of that is giving up everything. So in other words, not trying anymore to make a wonderful life, but to really give up trying at all and really awaken and be. Nice. And there's a wonderful saying in the spiritual traditions that to those who give all is given. And of course, when you sacrifice, you think, I'm going to give up. I'm going to have to live a life of poverty and go to Africa and help starving children. And because my heart is really called to that. And how do I also live a rich and full life? And so for me, I eventually got to the point where it's like, actually, it doesn't matter. I don't mind where I end up or what I do. What I mind is that I'm fully alive and awake. And in a way, it's kind of encountering the deep fear of death that's really hidden.
Yes, I totally agree. I feel like I've had to do that myself. Step into the oneness with source, realize that I'm an eternal being. And if I let go of all these things I'm holding on to in this world that I think are my stability, my security, the meaning of my life, as I let go of those and just release them and give myself to source and say, whether I live or die, whether I drop body, whether I'm in body or not, and give myself to source, to the source field, to this. In fact, my daily meditation is to go out of form, go out of particle form into wave form, and then out of form into the source field. And then invite my life to be reborn anew with greater love than I could ask or think from that source field. And I've seen just like miraculous unfolding as I've done that over the last couple of years, like every morning and every night. But you're right, it is actually even overcoming the fear of death, because I think a lot of the attachment to materialism or cultural norms or familiarity, it really, our fear of death is around that. And I will say that, for instance, in the ancient Aramaic, heaven is not somewhere out there. It's the community of love here and now. And I think we are eternal beings, and death was used by whatever we call it, the overlords of this planet, or whoever wanted to keep us subdued a little bit, or we ourselves, we started this belief that we would die. And
I think the thing is, it's like any addiction. you're not really don't have to give up material world. You just have to give up your attachment to it. And
Yes.
so, the beauty of being alive is you've got to be 100% detached. So it's all samsara and illusion, and nothing matters. It's just a great leela. And heaven is right here in everything, in the taste of a mango, and the dance of light on the water. It's like, this isn't a world of suffering and pain. It's the very miracle of Eden dancing all around us. We just can't see it because we're addicted to this idea that we are this body mind. So one of the great passions I have is to really bring power back to love and light, because one of the things that happens for people is that they let go of the 3D world, of the material world, to awaken to the subtle worlds of the soul and the transcendent life, which is beautiful and necessary. But then it's all about love and light, and often coming back down into the material world is just as important to get your identity out of the three worlds. The other side of it is to get the subtle worlds, the worlds of light and high vibration, down here in the physical world. So a lot of it for me has been helping people who have love and light, who have awoken, to claim their power back, to get down into their lower chakras, deal with sexuality, deal with money, deal with physical plane existence, and go through the world. So the higher vibration of spirit is not just up there in the higher realms, it's through the very physical body and bones that we're inhabiting, and this beautiful planet. So the main gift that I'm giving to people that come into my field is, yes, do the awakening, break out of the 3D world of your personality and awaken your soul. But then go a step further, because beyond the light and beyond the duality of soul and form and consciousness and subject and object is the great void, is the great mystery itself, which is not something that you can ever know. It's something that you are.
Yes.
And so really going through the ocean that is on the other side of both matter and consciousness, then there's no need to leave the physical world to get to the spiritual world, because it's one world. But unfortunately, you can't just get that conceptually. You have to develop enough consciousness to integrate with your form. So, of course, one of the great, cautions on the spiritual path had always been, be careful about going down before you go up, because people get addicted to these powerful energies of their sexuality, of materialism. They get addicted to them and they lose their heights. But the whole point of going up is so that you can then bring it back down. People talk about manifesting heaven on earth, and in some ways it's the last jumping off place for the ego, because we don't need to manifest that it's already here. What we need to do is wake up and realize it's here and see it with those eyes, and then all of a sudden the beauty that is everywhere around us and the riches that are around us can come to us. So for me, I actually live an ideal life, but I never tried to live it. I live in this beautiful sanctuary surrounded by nature. Whales come in to visit me here. Dolphins come by. There are kiwis in the forest. For 3 or 4 months of the year, there's almost nobody here but me and my wife and whoever comes to visit. It's a total sanctuary. And if you look out in the morning and don't know that you're in Eden and that this is heaven on earth and always has been, then there's something wrong inside here, not in the environment. And then the rest of my world, I'm traveling the world, meeting amazing people, people that I already love but I haven't met yet, and co-creating together amazing things. I get paid for that. After spending 20 years as a spiritual teacher, charging nothing for, my teachings. I get paid with that. I get to integrate my whole awakened life with my wonderful family and with my partner and with lovers and with people around the world that are part of this essential thing. And every day is just this incredible delight. But if I tried to live like that, if I set myself a goal, I am going to live in a beautiful place, well, then, of course, it would never happen. And if it did happen, I would have to be maintaining that. And so one of the great delights that makes my life so thrilling is that I'm not creating it. It's just a byproduct of giving my life fully and deeply to the essential life that we all are. And so this is, one thing that I also really would like to transmit is that, in the journey of relating, to others, there's the 3D relating, which is like personalities coming together. And when we get into, relationship counseling around that, this is all about emotional, compassionate communication and your language of love and mine. But it's basically like two planets banging together. They're individual and they're trying to relate to each other as individuals. And then there's what we call soul relating. People awaken to soulmates and soul groups and twin flames, and they start to realize, well, actually, there's a deeper self that's both masculine and feminine between human beings, and they can relate at that level, and there's a degree of unconditional love. But there's still subtle duality. There's masculine, feminine, there's two souls, there's twin souls, and if you go into the world of cosmology, that's like stars. Most stars are binary or triple. They circulate around each other. So you've stopped the banging of personality relating, and you've replaced it with this beautiful circling each other as souls. But then there's another level, which I'd call monadic relating. And the symbol for that is the black hole at the center of the galaxy. We've had all of this many years of light and consciousness, but the new symbol is dark. And our suns, our souls, circle around something. They circle around spirit, and you can never know spirit. So you can take light right to the edge of a black hole, but if you go over it, there's no light anymore. There's no consciousness. There's just pure being. And when people come together as galaxies instead of suns, then what happens when galaxies come together is the two black holes just become one, and it forms one galaxy. So everybody's trying and they're relating to integrate these three levels. There's a personal level of relating, like this is my body, that's your body, this is my stuff, that's your stuff. There's a soul level of relating, which is that we are different versions of love, maybe multi-incarnational versions of love who know each other, have destiny, have karma, and we're trying to relate as loving consciousness. But then there's monadic relating, and that is, I am you. You are me. There's only this one life vibrating at our core. And when our cores come together, then it makes sense of all the other levels of relating. So, you need all three because we do live in these incarnated, embodied, separate, existences. We can't deny that and just pretend that we're light. We actually are embodied, and we have biological jealousies and drives, and we have these beautiful things called bodies and personal selves. We are also souls, that have, trailing wisdom and beauty from many different journeys that we have to share with each other. But right at the very core, we are essentially this one great life that's vibrating through everything. And so if you can base your relating on that, so instead of your relating either being the dance of souls or the clashing of personalities, if you can really both touch, first of all in couples and then in groups and then more and more, if you can really touch that deep knowing of your essential sameness, your unity as life, if you can base your relating there, then it's like the upside down tree. Then it becomes easier to work through your soul connections. And then it becomes much easier to work through your individual personal stuff. So I like to get people as fast as possible to taste that non-dual, void, just oneness. And it's also so much faster in relating. It's like if we really want to relate to each other, if I can go to another human being and strip right open to the core, to that empty mystery at the core, and they can, then anything that they are embodying as an energy being that can serve my path, I can just receive directly, and everything that I have, they can receive. So it's a much faster way than all of this, slow translation of, here's what I like, here's what you like.
Oh my gosh. Wow. All I can say is you are not only extremely poetic and eloquent about saying all of this, but you're also very practical. And that's wonderful. And it really hands us some clues and some tips as to how to awaken our own journey. And so I would think being in a class with you would be very exciting. And I know you have some ISTA classes coming up, different places around the world.
Yep.
Without maybe your schedule, getting specifically into it. But again, they can find your schedule at your website, which is brucelyon.com. And also at the ISTA, is it ISTA.com at this point?
It's schooloftemplearts.org.
Schooloftemplearts.org.
Yeah. I mean, basically, if they just put in ISTA or Bruce Lyon, they'll find me. But one of the things about the ISTA trainings is that they're a global training now that's happening in about 30 countries that has many different teachers coming from all different fields. So we live at a time where, someone has developed the Kabbalah wisdom, somebody else has ecological knowledge. All of these wisdoms are coming together, and we try to give a training that really helps people deeply awaken to their life force energy in as short a time as possible. So exciting trainings for anyone who'd like to do those.
Absolutely. I mean, I would think it would be just wonderful to be in a class with you and to just kind of go through this process. So do you know what countries offhand you're going to coming up?
I'm doing 17 separate week-long trainings next year. So all over the world, from starting in Australia, Bali, Guatemala, Brazil, and then Czechoslovakia, Sweden, Prague, Israel, Egypt, South Africa. So, I do a big circuit. I'm doing 3 that I just do myself next year called Wild.
Oh,
and
great.
What these are about is I love meeting people where they are. Okay. So if somebody is in an early stage of awakening and so on, then of course you need a totally different thing than something else. But I also love once or twice a year to just do to work at the level that I want to work at, which means to attract those people who have got partial practice and methods and process, and really are just about showing up. So in other words, they're awake enough to just show up and co-create together in the moment. And those workshops I really love because I have no idea what's going to happen.
I'm going to look at your schedule and see when those are. It seems like that would be really fun to come to.
Yeah, they are really, they're alive and fun.
So what would you say is one of the most profound things that you get about teaching, and what is one of the greatest challenges in teaching this material around the world?
Yeah. Well, I'll start with the greatest challenge. The greatest challenge is when you meet people deeply at the level of soul, in a way that they may not have been met before, then of course you become very significant in their lives, because all of a sudden something's happened and some spark has awakened. And because I meet thousands of people almost every year, I can't sustain relationship with all of those people. But so one of the most difficult things is to really deeply meet, to be 100% present and meet someone in the depth of their being, and then to be able to move. So I find that the most challenging, because we all have this deep abandonment wound. Most of us have this sense that we're here alone and nobody really sees us, because we've come into a world where parents aren't awake, where souls aren't here singing us into the mystery. We're feeling deep down in our core abandoned and trying to fill that wound. And all of a sudden we get seen, or we get met, or we realize, actually, I do belong here. There are people awake who love me and who I love. And then they're back. It's like taking a fish out of a pond for a while and letting it breathe fresh, clean air. And then it's going to go back into the poison pond of its life. And so that's the most challenging thing, to really enter into people, into these modern temples where we're living like we're supposed to live, where everybody's heart says, yes, I fucking belong here. This is my life and this is how I should be living it. And then to see those people have to go back to their lives and know that they're going to lose some of that, and know that they're going to grieve for that. That's painful. But the other side is, why is it so amazing, is because I used to really be ashamed to be a human being. You know, I wanted to be a dolphin or a tree or
Mm,
anything but these
yeah.
cruel, stupid things called human beings.
Yeah.
You know, so one of the things that's so amazing about teaching is I get to experience the dignity and the divinity of the human spirit. If you give people space and permission to be themselves, then out of all of this bullshit emerges this shining, amazing thing called a human being. So
Nice.
I think I really teach to rehabilitate myself into the human family and to feel proud to be alive and to be human. And the more people I meet who are willing to just step into themselves and
Right.
show up, the more I feel like I belong here and this is my tribe. So I
Nice.
do it for me, you know, and
Nice.
and there is only one of us. So
You're
I
right.
just feel really fortunate to be able to do what I do and to be met by people who are as much my teachers as I am theirs.
So how does that work with you and your partner? Because obviously you're in kind of an open flow with life, which I think is really admirable. I don't know that I've developed to that level myself in my own life. And I think it's really, um, beautiful. And I'm curious to how that goes. How have you guys developed that? And what is that like for you?
Yeah. Well, of course, that's one of the deep questions that people are exploring these days, you know, monogamy, polyamory, celibacy. How do we actually do relating in the modern world? And
Right.
I know my wife and I were lucky that we met through at a time in our lives when, 20 years ago, when we were both on a deep spiritual path. And so when we came together into a relationship, the relationship was not so much about survival and security and having children together. Both of us already had children. Our relationship was about how do a man and woman really play together in a way that really seeks each other's love and freedom.
Yes. And
And
I think it's such a key, love and freedom. Like
yeah,
to me, like I've been out of relationship for a few years and I've gained so much connection to myself. And I kind of have this commitment at this point that I will never give up an ounce of myself again to be in a relationship with someone else. I mean, I want to be with people that can support me being completely free to be who I am in
absolutely.
multitude of ways.
So we have this thing that we call theogamy, that our relation is like theogamy. In other words, that the primary relationship is God with God, and that can be through celibacy. So each of us need time alone to just be really in that deep connection with our own divinity. And that our first marriage is our marriage to ourselves and our marriage to
Right.
God, and it's not to each other. We're having an affair, a beautiful divine affair. And then there's the monogamous part of what really the sanctity of marriage is that if you go deeply with one other person, if you decide to say with one person, you know what, I am going to be here for your journey and you're going to be here for mine. I'm not just going to be here as long as it feels good and it's light and fluffy and we're feeling amazing, but I'm actually going to be in your life through whatever it takes for you to be fully free. That's a deep, beautiful journey, and I think there's a part of the heart that longs to journey deeply with one.
Yes.
And then there's the polyamorous side of it, which is that no human being is going to fulfill and awaken all parts of us. And so to be authentic in our connection and our relating with whoever we meet in a way that gives full honor to our individuality and to our deep partnerships, that's the journey. So theogamy really is that whatever we're doing, whether we're relating inside ourselves, whether we're relating with each other, or whether we're relating around the world with other people, that the most important thing is that connection to our divinity. And when you know that that's what the other person's doing and you can trust that that's what they're doing, then there's just celebration and delight in what brings them into greater being and expression.
That's
And
amazing.
in saying that, it's not to say there aren't huge and deep challenges. I mean, it's not a lifestyle choice. Anybody who wants to open relationship, can't do it just because it sounds like a good lifestyle that they can fit in with their 9-to-5 job. I mean, it's a spiritual path and it
Right.
requires deep attention to
Yeah.
some of these very primal energies that arise for
Mhm.
everybody, that come to play in relationships.
Definitely. What was the word you used? Theogamy?
Theogamy,
And
theogamy, which So gami is like, marriage, and there's polygamy and celibacy and monogamy, but theogamy means being married to God.
Oh,
And
nice.
once upon a time, the people who did that had to be celibate, because
Right.
the sexual energies were too powerful. We had many years where people thought that spirituality and sexuality were different. And so to be more spiritual, they had to get away from the passions of sexuality and
Right.
meditate and so on. And then um, and then there was monogamy, which is like God can only be really contacted through the sanctity of a union between two dedicated beings.
Right.
And then there's things like polyamory and so on, which are saying, okay, but what about the group? And so my experience of that is you need all of them. All of them are authentic paths. And when you really deeply awaken, then it's not so much about following a path anymore, but it's about really being deeply married to your spiritual core. And so that will express itself in love in many ways, because the beautiful thing about love that everybody finds, whether they're following a path of monogamy, celibacy, polyamory, whatever, is that love is the most powerful force in the universe. And love doesn't want to be put in a box. Love is
Right.
not a paradigm. Love is not a path. Love actually is what makes up everything. And so sooner or later, love will want to bust out of any box you try to put around it.
It's
And as long
true.
as we know that about love, that love does not serve us, love is one of the hardest and most beautiful and deepest teachers that's really trying to get us on our knees and confess
Yes.
that actually we don't really know what love is. And if we're willing to let love teach us, then love becomes the deep guide to our life, not,
Beautiful.
some form that we've created for love to inhabit.
Right. Um, yeah. One of the things that I talk about in 21st Century Superhuman, because in the ancient Aramaic, the true forgiveness process was removing from ourselves the energy that was creating a certain situation outside of love. And I say, in Harvard studies say 95% of our information or our data internally is unconscious. And so we're carrying these unconscious thought forms from thousands of generations of humanity. And, blame, fear, rage, hostility, grief, all those are pretty obvious. But when we start getting into judgment and control, those are the really subtle ones. And I think those are things that really come up in relationship. I mean, when we're wanting to control someone else or control their experience or judging their experience. And I call those, it's easy to go, oh, I can clear my fear or my anger. I can clear my blame, but can I clear my judgment? Can I clear my control mechanism? And I think those are more subtle and they're deeper. And I think what you're talking about, this kind of dance, probably must bring up a lot of that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, because at first, in order to clear these things, we have to own them. And
Right.
probably the difference between those who want to be free and those who really are free, if there was one core difference to me, it's that people who really get free face their shadow in a deep way. They face their fears, they face the hardest parts of their being, rather than stay with the love and light. And so to truly clear them, you can't clear them by staying up in love and light and throwing down light. You have to actually be willing to go down. So in order to, it's like even Jesus on the cross, after he was crucified, he went to hell for 3 days. And nobody really likes going to hell. They prefer hell's out there, but all of us have hell inside us. And there are places in each of us that would seek to absolutely control and dominate anyone else, in order to feel safe. And so these things have to be owned, and it's only really in the deep intimacy of relationship that you feel safe enough to own the fact that
Yes.
there are parts of us that are the worst of humanity. We all have potential to be Hitler, and we all have potential to, because we are the whole of humanity. So it's one thing to own our light. It's another to feel safe enough to own our darkness and to
Yeah.
really deeply go there with love. And then
Beautiful.
we find that actually some of these places that we've thought are the most difficult and hard places can be really beautiful too when they're redeemed.
Absolutely. I think that's a really, really well said piece and so important. I think the shadow, clearing the shadow, feeling safe enough in an intimate situation. And I think it is those really deep, intimate situations where we have the agreement that I'm going to stick with you through this, through looking at the shadows, through getting in touch with my dark side, or whatever it is that I have to deal with that keeps me from being able to stand in pure love. And to have people that are willing to walk through those gates with us, I think is very cool.
And that's probably, one of the keys for me in what I would call initiation, that every human being individually and the planet as a whole is going through this initiation. And the doorway is that wound of abandonment. And Jesus showed us when he, stood on the cross and said, Abba, Abba, why hast thou forsaken me?
Right.
That the one universal experience that all human beings have, but they think that they're alone in, which is really a, irony, is that each person deep down in the core of their heart feels abandoned. And that there is no way around that. There's no distraction from that. Eventually and ultimately, in any relationship, we'll have to come to that place.
And probably abandoned and unworthy of love.
Abandoned and unworthy because we come as a soul and nobody sees us. And so we feel like the best of us is not seen and of no value. And we also feel like we're here amongst this 3D world and we're abandoned by spirit. So the core existential wound in every human being is this deep feeling right in the very core of the heart of abandonment. And of course, the same answer for everyone who's been through that door is actually we weren't abandoned. We abandoned love. In that moment, when we bought the story that we weren't worthy or that we were separate from God, we abandoned. And so the only way back, which is what personal power is to reclaim your power, that it isn't about somebody else not abandoning you, even your partner, even your mother or your father or God, or it's about not abandoning yourself. And if you really find that place where you go through the heartache of feeling abandoned and you find yourself and you refuse to abandon yourself, then the whole world comes and sits at your feet because you have suddenly become real. Otherwise, most of us are looking for a reason or an excuse why our life didn't work. And unfortunately, nobody else is going to provide that for us. So the fast path, I often say to people, is if you want to go there, get abandoned and betrayed really early. Don't try to avoid it, because everybody has this at their core. And bravery and courage comes from feeling it and knowing that it's not going to be the end of us, that underneath that abandonment is the shining beauty of our Godhead. So
that is
it's a little bit difficult because,
well said. Beautiful.
Yeah, because most people actually, they don't want that news. They would prefer the news that there's a partner or a soulmate out there, or there's somebody who will take that feeling away.
They did it to me.
Exactly.
And you're right. And it's so true, so true, so true. Beautifully said. Just so well said. Well, we've got just a few minutes left. Anything else you'd like to tell us about? I mean, I know you've written books. I was listening to one of your videos earlier called Supernova, which was really cool. And maybe you could say something to that if it moves you to do so. And the Shambhala School, is that in existence? And just a few little odds and ends about ways people might get in touch with your kind of the gamut of what you're teaching.
Yeah, my books are very inaccessible, although one day I will write one that is, because they're all very esoteric,
Okay.
but one of the very, very simple ways, that we're just starting to work with now is having these people all over the planet, so many hundreds of thousands of us who are really forming the new culture. Yes. And it's a bit like when the trumpet of Jericho sounded, the walls came down. And so many people are busy fighting the existing culture and the bad Illuminati and the corporates and so on, that they forget that if they really found true power, true spiritual power, and live that, there's nothing more powerful in the world. Everything would come down.
That's right.
So basically, a lot of it is that we just need to find each other and we need to connect to each other.
Yeah.
So one of the ways that we're doing that is just every Wednesday, in New Zealand it's 10 a.m. Wednesday, but globally, it's like 10 o'clock Tuesday night, UTC time.
And then for me in the States, it would be about 4 p.m. or something like that. Or
right. So just one time, once a week, where we tap into that life force that we all are. You know,
Right.
that every human being, as we wake up, is an energy field. And as we come together as this great Sangha around the world, we create the new culture. We don't actually have to go to those who are still running the dying old form.
Right.
We create a new culture out of our livingness and our connection with each other.
Yes.
So the main thing, you know, that I said to people too is not even so much connect to me or to connect to other teachers or whatever, but connect to each other, connect to this one thing that we are, and download that together. It's like,
beautiful.
Like Tesla had this idea of these towers that electricity would hit and create this new global energy thing. Well, the global energy that people are looking for is this life force of spirit, of coming alive. And when we come alive together. So my encouragement would be, and we're doing this in Shambhala School, is come together. You know, you can come together actually on a webinar and a web page, and we'll download, you know, smartphone apps and so on, but come together once a week and touch that life force. If you can get to ISTA trainings or my trainings, or if you just want information, you can go to shambhalaschool.com or Shambhala Tantra, which is the organization I run with my wife.
Nice.
But the primary thing I would say is this is the most incredible time on the planet for people to be willing to step into their power and to give themselves permission to just step out. I mean, one of the things that happened for thousands of years is people who loved stepped out, they got crucified, they got shot, But there's so many people waking up today that all that's required is to pass through those old ancient fears that something's going to happen to us if we show up, and just start showing up. And as soon as you do, all around you, you'll see the others who are doing that and hang out with them and grow out this new culture of love and freedom. So connect with me, sure, but connect with yourself, connect with life force. And and hopefully, if you can, get to a training or to some meeting place where other people are genuinely awake. Genuinely awake and living it. That's probably the best medicine of all.
Absolutely.
And so what you're doing too is, you know, you're giving people access through a click of the button on technology to connect with a stream of energy, which helps support them in their own journey. So, and that's what I have to say as I finish this time with you is it's time to live, beloveds. You know, whatever that truly deeply means for you, this is the time to do it. And it would be a real shame for 5 billion years of evolution on planet Earth to kind of end in this massive people lost in the 3D zombie land of cities and lattes and property values. You know, it's like there is just so much more waiting behind the veils to be revealed. So I hope we get to do it together.
Let me switch back here. Oh, as it's been all through this, so eloquently well said. And thank you so much for being willing to do this with me. Again, as you said, it's a transmission to our listeners. And I'm so grateful for everyone who is listening, who has their minds and hearts open. And I just, everything you said is so true. And because I'm in communication with a lot of people from around the world, and they say to me, well, what about this? And what about that bad person over there? And what about this war? And what about this issue? And I just say, hey, it's all inside of you. You know, breathe, smile, come back to love within yourself and connect with the community. And this really is it. It really is the answer. It really is what the ancients called the shift of the ages, the greatest evolutionary leap in human history, which isn't coming. We're already in it. And it's so exciting.
It's a wild party. It's thrilling, isn't it? You know, it's thrilling.
Yeah, we invite you to join the wild party of knowing yourself, of loving yourself, and being able to look out at this world through the eyes of love that are creating kind of a new civilization that's founded in love and truth and essence, and where we're literally also clearing our shadows. I think that's an important piece, because that which exists outside of love is from the shadow being cast from inside of us. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to see it.
And, you know, I just add one thing to that, and that is that, you know, it's not all about just light and love and denying the shadow in the world too. I mean, the fact that 30,000 children die every day of starvation for a parent. It's just fucking heartbreaking. The fact that wars are going on, the fact that the homeless people, the refugees, it's like, it's not a denial of this. And these things need to be looked at and faced and challenged and met with compassion and love and change and rage and anger as well.
Yep.
It's not that anything is separate from spirit. It's just that none of that should disturb our deep peace. In other words, we should get emotionally activated by these things. We should work to change them and so on, but you don't leave love to do that. That's love right. Actually can be wild, and it can be rough, and it can be Kali, and it can be all of those things. Yes. It doesn't have to be sweet.
Yep.
But if we're not coming from love, we're just making more mess.
Right. So, love can be the power that drives the boat to make the change happen.
Love and power together.
Yeah. And the disclosure that we've had, I say there's so much light coming in through all of us that suddenly we can see the darkness that's been here, that's been perpetuated out of living outside of love. And
absolutely.
And as you say, I mean,
and we can see the darkness in ourselves too. And that's sometimes harder to face than it is out there in the world.
Right. Well, again, thank you so much. And I want to thank our listeners and Naturally Better TV, which this is a program of. And there's a lot of great producers on Naturally Better, as well as our 21st Century Superhuman shows that are happening every week. We invite you to turn your TV off until it finds something good to say, but keep growing, absorbing information and this kind of like exciting, fresh news that's in the world about all of us waking up into the potential of who we truly are as a race of beings on this beautiful planet. So much love to all. You, Bruce, my brother, thank you so much.
And, thank you, Cary. Delight to play with you.
We'll see you out on the great rainbow of light as we all travel this beautiful journey together.
Okay. Bye now.